Hello, and welcome to episode 10 of What If Civilization Started Over. Today is going to be a very interesting episode because a lot of interesting stuff is going to happen. The first thing that's going to happen, and this is going to kick off a lot of stuff, but the year is 376, and Japan declares their intentions to get control back of Korea. And they sign a treaty with the Yellow River Valley that they will invade Korea together. And this is exactly what Japan starts to do. You can't really see Japan invading Korea unless you have perfect color vision. So sorry to the colorblind, I guess. Meanwhile, Yellow River Valley is doing the same. They are significantly more effective than Japan. In fact, I think it would make sense for Korea to just deflect all Japanese attacks. So Yellow River Valley is doing most of the actual work. But these guys are distracting Korea, so definitely not nothing that Japan is doing, but not much. Anyway, Korea calls for help, and the Yangtze Valley will answer their call, as although they are different sects of theocracy, the same way that the HRE and the Byzantines were able to cooperate for the Crusades, these guys are able to cooperate for what they consider to be a holy war against um, Japan and the Yellow River Valley, and they will start invading into the Yellow River Valley. They are extremely successful. The Yellow River Valley has to fully withdraw from Korea at some point, and that allows them to start fighting back a little bit more effectively, but generally they're not doing very well. Korea will then launch an assault against Japan, taking some of their islands, as well as landing a little bit on them. They really are similar in color. Give me a sec. Okay, Japan is now purple because I say so. As Korea is going to make some landings in southern Honshu. They couldn't land on Kyushu, so if you see anything on Kyushu, they're not actually there. But they make landings on southern Honshu and are relatively successful. They're not invading into Yellow River Valley, they're just kind of holding their border. But anyway, this land is going to fall, obviously, as Yellow River Valley is losing to Yangtze River Valley. And so now Yellow River Valley will cry out for help, and they will have their call answered by South China, who will surprise attack Yangtze and immediately seize their capital, as well as this city. And this is all the attack they did, but Yangtze is going to withdraw a little bit from Yellow, and that's enough to make them suffer a decent amount as they start losing a bunch of land up to here. Meanwhile, South China is just basically taking the actual literal Yangtze River, which is bad for Yangtze, obviously, because that's where a majority of their everything is. And the theocrat has fled to this city or something, although China doesn't actually know where he fled to. But this theocrat will then call on Burma to join in on the war for obvious reasons, since they are another theocracy, and obviously Burma, as they start their own invasion into China. And before China's really able to stop them, they get a lot of land, even though they're quite weak. But China is very strong, so they're going to start pushing Burma back. And in fact, they do very well at this, as Burma turns out not to be that big of a help to the theocrats. But this is officially a war between theocrats and non-theocrats. You can't argue that it isn't. Either way, Yangtze is able to recapture their capital and start an invasion over here, but South China is able to take this land. Yangtze is also able to push back the Yellow River Valley over here. As Korea decides to pivot, they try to withdraw their armies from Japan, but it ends in disaster. But either way, they are still able to take the capital of the Yellow River Valley. And if the Yellow River Valley falls, that would be very bad for South China and Japan. And unfortunately, the Yellow River Valley will fall, as the king of the Yellow River Valley decides to surrender, as long as he gets to keep his life, and most of his kingdom stays intact. And they do this peace treaty while the war is going on. So the main thing of this peace treaty was actually that these guys have to become a theocracy after the current king dies. So the current king will remain a monarch, but he's not allowed to do anything. And then once he dies, which he already has cancer when this peace treaty signed. That's kind of why he wanted to sign the peace treaty. He didn't want to die at war. So he already has cancer, which is why these guys were willing to let him rule for the last 2 years of his life. And then when he dies, it'll become a theocracy that'll then join these guys. But for now, these guys are still. I mean, this is an amazing break for the theocrats, as it kind of lets them start just destroying South China, as even Burma is able to start pushing South China back, even taking the city. So South China will make a deal with Thailand that Thailand gets to annex all of Burma, assuming they win the war. So Thailand will obviously join in because that's an amazing deal. So Thailand will start their invasion into Burma, and they'll pretty quickly capture the capital. With this, China is going to take the offensive again. They really don't put that many troops in the Burmese front since they know they're not actually going to get anything out of it. Instead, they use this to refocus on the front up north, which they're sort of winning, but like they're not winning by enough for it to feel good. Japan is also Korea's new target as they re-land on southern Honshu and kind of just take the entire island of Honshu. And then they basically say, hey, we'll let you keep the rest of your territory if you sign peace. And Kyushu, as we'll now call them, is forced to sign peace with Korea. So that's not good for Japan. But anyway, that's why China was even able to get this much, because now these guys, and Yangtze is stronger than China now. So these guys are going to start putting their might against China. And with Thailand only focusing on Burma and not helping China out at all, Burma's going to fall. In fact, I think they might as well just surrender as Thailand fully annexes Burma. Yeah, so South China is not doing very well, and Thailand's kind of just ignoring them, not helping them. So China now calls on North India, and North India will heed the call, because they've been promised a lot of Yangtze's territory. And it's at this point that these guys actually officially become a theocracy. So that's going to start helping these guys out. And that means that North India doesn't actually help as much as they thought they would. In fact, North India is not very strong. And with North India's most of their army distracted, East India will do something crazy because you think they're really weak. But they will start an invasion of North India, and they're actually winning. And it's like, how are they doing this? And they might or might not be being funded by Yangtze. Obviously they are. But also the former king of Burma has fled here and is helping these guys with his entire army. That's why he fell so fast, because he was kind of surrendering and taking a different route, which is why these guys are then invading into former Burmese territory. And so even though these guys are different theocracies, they actually are helping each other out. And you might see where this is going, because then Pakistan declares war on North India. North India fully withdraws from Yangtze and starts getting chased into their own territory over here, as Burma starts getting liberated as well by Yangtze, not just North India. China is losing as the island of Taiwan is captured by Korea, as well as all of these islands. At this point, China is really suffering, but they still think that they're strong enough, because West India has been mobilizing. Everyone's known that. And it's now that they officially join in on the war against East India, trying to take them out once and for all. But with support from the theocracies, East India is able to last. But in a surprise move, Persia will start invading into Pakistan, as well as East India, or West India, not East India. And Pakistan has kind of fallen at this point. There's no way they can realistically survive this, but they stay in it. But North India is able to push them out, and Pakistan falls. And so North India can start focusing on these guys. Unfortunately for them, China has just cut a deal, it's a ceasefire. It's not like an actual peace treaty, but these guys have stopped fighting for now, so China can regroup, as well as Yangtze. And Yangtze uses this time to basically partially help liberate Myanmar as they reset up the Burmese government in the territories controlled by Burmese allies. And these guys start trying to liberate themselves and are doing decently well. They take the old capital, for example, and move their government there. And at this point, Thailand just gives up and retreats. But Burma will then start invading into Thailand, and they're doing quite well. Anyway, East India is mostly fallen but then they retreat from North India because they want to let Yangtze deal with North India as well as Burma. And so instead, East India is able to start freeing themselves, which is nice. North India tries chasing them in, but that was probably silly because they just lose more territory. And then they lose the territory they had invaded, and it was a dumb idea. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, Persia declares war on Mesopotamia while they're occupying Pakistan. And they kind of withdraw their occupying troops from Pakistan, which leads to... But anyway, that leads to Pakistan kind of re-emerging in this territory. And so Pakistan is going to kind of start liberating themselves as revolutions wreck these guys. And all of a sudden, a massive East Indian revolution takes place in the territories that were controlled by East India. And West India did not see that coming, but it kind of follows the Pakistani one. Persia decides that they want to make peace with Mesopotamia, so as they're withdrawing, Mesopotamia starts invading into Persia, as well as northern Arabia. Despite being different religions, these guys are both theocracies, and they kind of both hate Persia with a passion. You know who else hates Persia? Oman. So they will start their own invasion of Persia. And just to make things worse, the entirety of the north of Persia will rebel in a Central Asian rebellion, and their capital will be here. Pakistan starts invading westward, as well as into West India, as North India is kind of getting screwed. And I'm just going to use the Burmese color for this entire country, for all of these guys that are invading, so it's like kind of a coalition. It's at this point that the ceasefire ends with South China. But South China was not as prepared as they thought, as their capital gets immediately captured, and at this point they fully surrender. But I'm going to just keep them like this for now. Actually, so the peace treaty is signed during the war again. These guys are forced to become a theocracy. That's like the main part of the peace treaty. They also lose a little bit of land, but not too much, because they want the theocracy to be powerful and not hate being a theocracy. And now East Asia is like almost fully theocracies. They have one target left. And this theocracy isn't like the old one where the king got to rule for the rest of his life. The king had to become kind of like a symbolic figure for the rest of his life, and then his son doesn't get anything. And the new theocrat of this country immediately invades into Thailand. And of all countries, East India, who, if you'll remember, actually used to control Thailand, they will try and reclaim their colony. And these people don't really like it, but they can't really stop it, as Thailand's government kind of collapses, and so the entire country just kind of falls as to the theocrats. So they'll divide this country up later, but Thailand will no longer exist. West India is somehow losing to East India, as East India just is way more motivated, and they're repeating the tactics that they used 200 years prior. Let's turn off ideologies. And they also have Pakistan, as North India will actually have a new king who immediately surrenders, because the king was... North India has an interesting thing. They have a new king who was training to become a priest and accidentally became king because his brother had died. And he will actually switch sides in the war in exchange for getting all of his land back, which everyone is happy to give him. And at this point, East India is cooked, or West India is cooked, so they will sign a peace treaty with everyone. So they're out of it. Let's see what the peace treaty looks like. And East India actually gets to stay a monarchy, but they have been drastically crippled. These guys are a theocracy. I haven't put their symbol in yet, but they are a theocracy of the Persian religion. And these guys are sort of a theocracy, which makes it like they're like a monarchy / theocracy, which makes it even funnier that they're being destroyed by actual theocracies who are officially theocracies. And they know when to call it quits, so they will surrender to all of the parties on the condition they have to stay a monarchy and basically keep their monarchy. Okay, so you might think, hey, that's all calmed down now. There's no more war. And there wasn't for like 10 years. But then these guys get an idea, and they got this idea, guess where? Yeah, they got it from the entire thing that just happened in the East. So they will basically seize these colonies for themselves. And Yemen will get mad about that. And Yemen and Saudi Arabia are trying to stop these guys, but unfortunately, the theocracies have become so much stronger, and especially South Arabia has stagnated a lot. South Arabia is forced to surrender to North Arabia, but I'm actually going to color them in South Arabia's color. Just know that this is North Arabia. Yeah, North Arabia wins really quickly, and at this point, Yemen will also surrender, and their punishment is they just have to switch their ideology. Actually, no, they don't have a punishment at all. Yemen surrenders quickly enough. They don't have a punishment. They just have to lose their colony. Is yet another state that got emboldened by their war that wants to win again. And they try to recapture East Turkey. And it's really easy for them to do that, and they do. Russia is probably going to be the only monarchy that fully stays intact throughout this episode, because Turkey is going to collapse as these lands rebel, as well as these lands in the north will rebel, and these lands actually are convinced to rebel as well. And these are theocratic rebellions that are not actually egged on by anything, but have just kind of been always there. And Turkey just kind of collapses to these, but I'm going to keep their color, so let's see what happens. So these are the new ideologies. And now we have to go back in time, because some stuff has been happening between Rome and Carthage, and that would be the third and final Punic War. And this one is started over the island of Sardinia, because Rome still claims it, despite having officially given it to Carthage, and in this case they invade it. And I kind of want to be done with this video. I feel like this video is getting quite long, so I'm just going to basically say Rome is winning at first, but then France gets involved against Rome, and they're losing, as well as Albania actually gets involved against Rome. And at this point, this region, which is the Yellow Religion, declares independence and very quickly seizes these regions, and Albania retreats. And these guys sign a deal with France, as these guys are a new Croatian theocracy. Obviously, Rome is not going to be able to handle this, so they withdraw from Carthage and try to settle the war. But instead, Carthage will start invading Sicily and then up the Roman, or up the Italian peninsula. But then Libya and Egypt are like, nah, we don't want Carthage to be too powerful because they're bad or whatever. So Libya starts an invasion with help from Egypt, and together they take this desert region that no one lives in. Rome then calls on their former colonies to help them out, but the theocracy actually refuses to help them out. So England actually starts invading into the theocracy, whereas Galicia starts invading into Spain, because why not, even though that's not what Rome actually wanted them to do. Carthage will withdraw from Rome, and now they ask for the peace, and Rome and Carthage kind of go to peace with each other. But then Sparta will invade into this part of Rome. The point of this is just that it's chaotic. You don't have to actually pay attention to every little thing that happens, but anyway, Carthage is cooked as their capital is taken. And just to make things worse, a theocratic revolution takes over the rest of the country, but I'm going to keep their color, and they agree to sign peace. Okay, as for Rome, they actually are winning miraculously, given how bad the situation is for them, although Sparta is quite weak, and also northern Greece starts invading into them, so they sign a treaty with these guys, and that's what leads to them not invading Rome anymore. Unfortunately for them, actually, fortunately, I guess, Croatia and France are at it because of the whole theocracy versus not theocracy thing. Also, England has been cooked and gets fully invaded by France. And you might wonder, why am I calling them France? Shouldn't I be calling them Northern France? Well, just you wait. Anyway, they are gone. They lasted one episode. Yeah, so France is going to take all of France. That is their new goal. And they sign a treaty with Spain. That leads Spain to just take over Galicia as Galicia falls. But I'm going to speed this up. At the end of this, France will fall. Rome will actually get all of their territory back. But they'll have to give some to Croatia. And Rome is going to end up in a foreign world. And when I say some, I mean they have to give a lot of territory to Croatia. And also some to France. And when this all ends, the year is 476. One more thing, because I forgot to do this earlier. This peace treaty. And they're all just going to take the territory they currently control. Okay. And with that, I'll end the episode here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.